on a weekly basis, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we are a little late due to some technical difficulties, but we're here. Don't worry about it. Everything will be all right. Now, with that being said, we do have some cool things coming up today. We have a special guest, a local radio show host. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to keep you along until he's here. But with that being said, we are going to start off a little different today. We're going to go ahead and start with NBA news because, that's what's hot right now. Obviously, the Tigers are sizzling, baby, but we will have a longer conversation about that coming up prior to our guest. Now, with that being said, the NBA playoffs obviously are more than upon us. We are a game into the Western Conference Finals. Eastern Conference Finals game one is tonight, I believe at 8 o'clock or 8:30. I can't remember. I think it's 8 o'clock. Knicks, Pacers, though, should be a good series. OKC, obviously, pretty much. I don't know if I want to use the word dominated because the first half was pretty close and Minnesota was up for the most part, but that second half they dominated the Timberwolves. They won by over 20 points. I think the Timberwolves will probably have a better game two. At least I hope because I want it. I'm an OKC fan, but I want it to be fun at least. So with that being said, like it sort of kind of right now at least looks like OKC is going to make it out of the West. I personally think the Knicks will make it out of the East, which will be crazy in New York City. I don't know the last time the Knicks made the finals, but I have a couple cousins that are from New York City, huge Knicks fans, and I'll probably be rooting for OKC, obviously, because they're my team. But like, if the Knicks win, I won't be crushed. Mainly because OKC is one of the youngest teams in the NBA anyway, and we'll be okay, I think. It might be the Knicks' only chance. So, with that being said, though, obviously Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has won the 2024 MVP for the NBA. Now, a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of talk about, foul merchant and the free throws and blah, 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 blah. The fact of the matter is the stats don't back that argument up. I mean, it is what it is. I saw a stat earlier today. There are 29 other MVPs that shot more free throws in the season than Shea did. Michael Jordan, for instance, averaged 9.9 free throws. I believe it was in the playoffs. So I'm just saying Shea's averaging less than I think 8 or yeah, it's like 7 something. So I just think that conversation needs to calm down a little bit. We need to give him his flowers because this dude was. I don't think anybody saw this coming the last 2 seasons that he had. I mean, I've always been a big fan. I mean, I bought his jersey 3 years ago. Like, my dog's named after him, literally. And that's just because, funny story about that, I mispronounced his name and I liked it so much that I named my dog that name. So her name is Shy. Shai because I thought his name was Shy for a while. And then I just liked the name so much. Once I found out it wasn't his name, I was like, yeah, I'll just name my dog that. So not necessarily because or named after him, but in a weird way. So moral of the story is I'm a big fan of Shea's. I always have been. But even I didn't see this coming. He legitimately might be the best player in basketball if he wins the championship and finals MVP this year. It's hard to argue against it. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, Jokic is number one, right? 3 MVPs. He won the finals a couple years ago. So he's the guy that you got to beat, but Shea just beat him in the playoffs. I mean, isn't that how we do football? Like, Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes the first time, but obviously didn't the second time. So it's just one of those things that's like, I think we should be able to, anoint guys the same way that we do. Now, with that being said, some Pistons talk. There's really not too much going on. The only thing I really wanted to mention today was their cap space. I took a look today. They actually don't have that much. Now, they could clear about 30 million or no, 57 million total if they got rid of the cap holds for like Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, and a couple other guys. However, they are negative 30 million right now due to Cade's extension kicking in this offseason. So they will only be at 27 million in the positive if they do those moves and don't sign anybody. Like that's no Malik Beasley, no Tim Hardaway Jr., no Dennis Schroeder. So think about it that way. Like I don't know if the Pistons are even in play in free agency this year. Unfortunately, like I thought it would be a little bit more or a little bit easier. I knew they would have to do some moving and getting rid of contracts and stuff. But unless we can trade Tobias Harris, it just for free, like and not get any money back in the deal, or not get a player with a big contract back in the deal, it's the only real way that we have a chance. I mean, realistically, like the the possibility that we go hard after a free agency or free agent just isn't up there in my opinion for the Pistons this year. So point being, we might have to make a trade, and I will talk about what it would be another time, just because right now there's really not too much going on for NBA trade rumors because the season's still going on. I mean, Giannis is really the only guy we've had any news on, and even then it's that he's still not completely done with Milwaukee. So with that being said, that's the end of our NBA talk for today. Now we will, move over to Detroit sports, specifically the Tigers, baby. Them Tigers are roaring. All right, they are out here kicking ass, man. Like we know, the watchers know. I'm not a huge baseball guy, right? Like I'm not watching every Tigers game. It's just not me. However, I feel like they lost a game a couple days ago, and that was the first loss that I've seen in a while. Like they've been on a roll, man. But with that being said, why don't I turn it over to our Tigers guy today to talk the Tigers, since I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So, with that being said, James, I will pass it over to you, and you can give us our Tigers update.
Yeah, thanks, Chase. What's going on, everyone? Uh, Once again, if you're watching us live, thank you. And if you're watching us on a replay or a video later on down the road, thank you for tuning in. The Tigers just got done with their game about 2 hours ago. They had yet another, I'm not going to get sick of saying this, but yet another win. Today was 5-1. And the thing that struck me different about this game is five different players all had RBIs today. So it wasn't like one guy took over the show or just carried the team like the other night with Torkelson having three of the team's four RBIs that game. But this was a total team effort. We are, and I know I said this last week, but the way it's going, it's just the way it is. We are 7-3 our last 10 games. Um, Whatever games rolled off last week and our current streak, it all kind of keeps up. But if we're going to stay 7-3 over a 10 game span for the rest of the season, I have no problem with a 70% win percentage. So I'll take that. We have our a 4 game series coming up against division rival the Cleveland Guardians coming up over these next 4 days. And currently, the Tigers have a 6.5 game lead on them in the division. We, as Tigers fans, are starting to, and just starting is my go-to word here with, I don't quite want to say being spoiled, but adding some cushion in the division. Because much like the NFC North for the Lions, the AL Central might be the best division in all of baseball. Like we have a 5 game lead in the division currently, which to be honest doesn't mean much because we're still so young in the season. I mean, we are past that magical 40 game mark. In fact, today's game conclusion was game number 50, but we still have 112 games to go. So a 5 game lead with 112 games to go, I'm not going to ooh and ah. We don't need to sweat it, but once again, the season's still young. But the Twins are 5 games back from us right now. They are 9-1 their last 10, so they are not really giving us any room to breathe. We cannot mess around too much. Granted, like I said, we're 7-3 our last 10, so we don't have to worry about that. But Kansas City and Cleveland also within the division, they were neck and neck this time last week. They have both fallen off. They were both 3-7 their last 10 games. So over the last 10 games, we've expanded our lead by 4 games on those two. And with Cleveland coming in, I mean, once again, not to beat a dead horse, but we do have a lot of games left. But divisional games are always important, especially when a division's this close. We currently have a 6.5 game lead on them, but who knows if they catch fire and they get hot and they sweep us? Or I mean, it's down to only a 2.5 game lead. But if we stay hot and they stay cold, we can get this to a 10 game lead, and then at that point, even this early in the season, they become an afterthought unless something else happens. But um, the, I don't see that really happening, to be honest. These Tigers, like Jay said, are hot. And even when some people, like Javi Baez, who started the year and continued for most of it on fire, he has been slumping these last few games. But that's okay because Riley Green, who, in my opinion, up until about 2 weeks ago was, excuse me, a slight disappointment on the year just because he is someone who is expected to carry this team and be a top two performer. Wasn't really doing that as of 2 weeks ago. The good news is these last 2 weeks, he's been on fire. So as Baez kind of trails off a little, Green has come on like a man possessed today. And like I said, these last 2 weeks, he's got his average almost up to the 300 mark. And his power numbers are coming up as well. So as the season progresses, everything kind of settles to where we expect him to be. And this team is not one to take lightly. This team is a legit World Series contender. We still don't have Parker Meadows, our everyday center fielder. We still don't have Matt Vierling, who is a very valuable kind of do-it-all piece. We still don't have Alex Cobb, who we paid $17 million to come over here in free agency, and he has yet to play for us. So we are the best record in baseball, and we are still missing 3 people that could help us out. So we can, I don't want to say only get better. I don't want to jinx it, but things are looking good for the Tigers. Our current uh, standard, our current point is good. Our future looks bright. I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but Max Clark, our Tigers' top prospect, he is killing it in the minors. It's to a point where, and I don't think he's ready for the big leagues by any means, but it might get to a point where we don't have room for these productive young guys to even come up because the current roster is getting the job done. You're not going to send a guy down just because a kid in Toledo's playing well or one of the other affiliates, depending on the prospect. Um, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's nothing broke on the Tigers. So we have good players now. Our prospects are looking good for the future. We're still getting guys acclimated. Vierling's still doing recovery, rehab starts, excuse me, in Toledo. So I'm like, we're adding to this team's core with the younger players. We're adding to this team this year with people coming off injuries. There have been some, I don't know if they have legs, but trade rumors that at least ESPN and some of the talking heads are talking about. I highly doubt the phone calls are actually being made. But there's talk out there. For now, that is all just talk. That's all it is. So at this point in time, I'm not going to talk about the what ifs when we have enough to talk about for the here and now. Um, Today also was 6 total pitchers used. So once again, it was a pitching chaos day, as AJ Hinch calls it, and a total team effort all up and down the lineup and the bullpen. So I'm looking forward to this 4 game series kicking off tomorrow at home, thankfully. So we were on the road in St. Louis, but now we are back home. And next week for this show, I can't wait to talk about hopefully sweep of the Cleveland Guardians. And with that, I will send it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, James, as always, with the Tigers update of the week. And like you said, they are hot, and that shows because the ticket prices are going up, baby. I bought tickets 3 weeks ago for $11, and then they were good seats too, not no like nosebleeds. It was pretty solid seats. I was really surprised. And then I went and checked, and this weekend, those same seats are in the $40 range, and it's like that makes more sense, but at the same time, it kind of hurts, because I didn't even get to go to the first game. I just had to eat the money and take the L because it rained. And that, folks, is why I don't like baseball. And I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'm just leave it at that. All right. No, I do like baseball. That's a lie. I catch Growlers games consistently, which is my local Kalamazoo not professional. They're a college. They're an amalgamation of college players. It's pretty fun. They won the championship last year, so that was cool. And I was there. That was sweet. It was a great time. And I get media passes, so I was in the dirt with the boys. But anyway, so with that being said, don't forget the Tigers are hot. Buy your merch today, baby. There are sales going on currently on fanatics.com, and you know what to do. Click the link in the description. It will help us out because we get a little tiny bit of piece of that, okay? Like just a little bit. Not you don't have to pay extra. That's the beauty. It comes from them. So think about it that way. You click that link, you're taking money from Fanatics. No. um, anyway, so click the link, buy your Tigers merch, and hopefully we see you at a game. Second, uh, what is it? Second sponsor of the video will be uh, Try the World. Now, we talked about this a little bit last show. It's a little bit different than some stuff that we've done before. It is a subscription box. You could buy one, but most people do the subscription. But the idea is you pick a country, you pick a like it wouldn't be a state because I mean, what kind of asshole would try the world for, Texas food? Drive there, brother. Anyway, so try the world. You pick a country, and then they send you a bunch of food, snacks, beverages, kind of an amalgamation of your choosing, straight to your door. And you can do monthly. You can pick a different country every month, and you could literally try the world throughout your month-to-month subscription. So link in the description on that one. And hopefully you guys get it and enjoy it. Hopefully we will be able to do that ourselves soon on the show. But with that being said, without further ado, we will be having our guest pretty soon. He should be on any time now. Ryan Walsh from Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh. He is a local radio host. He talks about all Detroit sports. I've been on the show a few times now. It's always a lot of fun to be on the show with him. He's going to be on for about a half an hour, probably the rest of the show. So, guys, stick around. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about the Lions draft class. We're going to be talking about the NFC North and maybe some predictions. We might even talk about the schedule. We'll see where the conversation takes us because it's always fun talking to Ryan. So he should be here any minute. And with that being said, now would be a great time to tell you to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. You guys know where to find us, MI Sports Media, misportsmedia.com for all of our articles. And don't forget to subscribe on the website, okay? Because by subscribing on the website, you automatically get entered into our giveaways. Okay? All you have to do is pay at least $1 a month. Okay? Pay at least the $1 a month and you get it automatically put in all of our Tiger ticket giveaways. Okay? That's one perk. Second perk, you will always get an email. Okay? The email will tell you the newest article that we put out. So that way you can keep up to date with all of the news that's going on straight from us. And with that being said, follow us on Instagram as well, MI Sports Media. If you are watching on YouTube after the fact, or if you are watching live currently, I would also appreciate it if you went up to that search bar, and typed in Jace O Sweet and subscribe to my personal channel, because what I do over there is we do a lot of sporting events. I go to, let's say, NBA games or NFL games. I got courtside seats not too long ago. So, and here we are with Ryan Walsh from Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh. We appreciate you for joining us today. As always, great to talk to you. The first thing I wanted to do was, of course, thank you for coming on. And I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the Lions draft? Because, we've talked about this a few times on your show, but usually you're asking me my thoughts. So I kind of would love to hear your more in-depth details on what you thought, of the Lions draft on draft night.
Yeah, appreciate being on the show here. I was watching it on the live stream here. It looks worse now with me in the picture, but sorry about that. I'm used to being on the radio, guys, so I got a face for radio. But yeah, it's weird to be on the other side of things. Yeah, we talked about it, had a good conversation the other day, but I mean, there's a lot going on. It's funny with these drafts because there's something very satisfying about this Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes reign, because it's satisfying in a way where there's like, all of us look at these draft boards and we cover all of this stuff, and then he never goes according to script. He flies to caves in Canada to find Giovanni Manu in some cave in Manitoba or whatever, and then throws everybody off. But I liked this draft. I think it was a very Lions draft. It was very need based and it filled needs. We talked about this a little bit on the show, Jace, but I feel like once he did the first two picks, especially the first three, but once he took Williams, and then you and I were both thinking edge there, which made a lot of sense. But once he took Williams and then Rutledge, it was like, okay, he's looking basically a year out. He knows he was close last year. He knows he was favored for the Super Bowl heading into, basically week 16 or 17, something like that. They were the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Then the injuries hit. They took the toll. But now he's forward planning, because we're going to have the other side of the great thing about this build, which is they've identified great players, but now they're going to have to pay them. And then they're going to have to let some players walk, go to a new team. And so now you get guys that'll be the next man up. We know Reader's probably not going to be on the team for very long, probably not beyond next year. We know Aleem McNeil, I think the last projection, I don't know if you guys follow Dr. Jimmy Liao, but he does a lot of work on the injuries. He's on my show a decent amount, but he had him coming back mid-season. So you're going to need defensive tackle help, which is why they pick up people like Roy Lopez, draft Williams. They know they're going to need depth. Lopez has been historically very available. And then you go Rutledge, same way. Glasgow is probably going to be out after this year. So now you've got kind of your guards of the future. You're cross-training Rutledge to maybe be the next Glasgow. That seems to be how they're doing it in camp here. And then same with Tesla. I know that was the reach, and we talked a lot about that. He's probably the most discussed draft pick. I like him because I actually interviewed him on our other show. He's a very nice kid. And I told him, this is probably my best prediction I've had on the show. I told him he profiled great I was like, you profile perfectly as a replacement for Tim Patrick, right? And he's like, oh, he downplayed it. He's a Lions fan. We all know that. But yeah, same thing there. Patrick's been great. I love his story, but he's probably not going to be, you just hope he makes it through this year with his injury history. So that's kind of the initial thoughts, obviously, but then you go through the rest of the draft and it kind of profiles like a typical draft. They kind of got solid slot in values at the first couple. They get a little crazy in the mid rounds where they make some reaches, and then they go back to the end where they're able to get some values there. And what I always try to do after the last few drafts is I basically take all the picks and then I re-slot them based on where they were projected. And it almost, if you said like, hey, we got these players, but you didn't tell people where they were picked, you'd move to slot down a little bit. Maybe you'd move Frazier up. And if you move people around, it wouldn't look as crazy as it did. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, this looks pretty good. But it's where they take them. And that's funny to me, but he gets good overall value.
Yeah, totally. And you already know I agree with pretty much everything you said there. The one thing I just that nags at me with this draft, man, is the trades. Like it seems to be the thing with Brad Holmes is like, look, I'm not gonna be mad about it, but it's like as someone who, loves team building, like that's really what I'm into when it comes to like sports, but football in general is, the GMing of it all. Like when you give up that much value, it like hurts my heart, man. It's like, damn, we couldn't have given up a little less than that. Like, and it seems, call me crazy, okay, but it seems like it's always Howie Roseman. He's always getting one over on us, like, and that's irritating too because they're a big rivalry now because they just won the Super Bowl and we want to be where they're at. So it hurts a little bit more because of all those factors. Now my next question for you, Ryan, is excuse me, is like, we talked about, the Lions draft and, how the Lions are doing, but a lot of people right now are talking about the NFC North in general because this division is just deep. It's kind of insane. I mean, it's definitely back to the black and blue division. It's definitely I would say the best division in football. I mean, it's four teams that realistically could make the playoffs at any point next year. I wouldn't be surprised if any of us miss the playoffs, if I'm being honest. Like, so with that being said, like, what are your thoughts on the Bears? Like, they just re-signed Joe Thuney, like doing all that what they did this free agency and the draft. Like, what are your thoughts on the Vikings and are they worrying you as a Lions fan right now?
Yeah, a little bit. I want to go back to the Roseman comment real quick because I'm wondering if that's where Holmes will get eventually. Get to the point where he's doing that because he's good at getting ahead on things. He's good at finding value. So I'm hoping that's the graduation of his plan because I'm with you. He's going to have to start finding those deals, especially as he's letting players walk. Maybe he has to let JMO walk or somebody else. He's going to have some odd men out and then replace them. But anyway, to answer your question about the division, yeah, I agree with you. It's the draw this year is interesting because they're basically playing the other division, I think, that has probably the most right to say that they're maybe the best division in football, and that's the AFC East. I think they're going to be strong. Burrow's going to be back. That's going to be a tough. It's going to be interesting to see how those divisions match up, and because obviously they've got to play each other. But yeah, this is a fun time of year. We always used to do this as Lions fans when they were not so good. It's like, oh, everybody gets better. Everybody adds players, everybody adds draft picks, free agents, whatever. But obviously you have to get more, you have to get better by a further degree than everybody else. And it seems like three of the teams may have done that in the division from kind of the team building aspect. I think the Lions did. They added, we've talked about them more, so I'll talk about them less for now. But, we talked about the draft. They've added some key free agents in. They'll be getting the healthy players from last year. I think that, obviously, they only had a couple losses last year. They'll build on that. But, yeah, the Bears, I mean, I hate to say it. I know people are going to want to go after them because they got Ben Johnson. They got Antoine Randall, who actually went to school with me. I watched him in college. He's one of my favorite players of all time, and a great guy too. But stole some of our coaching staff, but that's the way it works. That's the succession plan in the NFL. They had room at those other teams that they didn't have at their team. But yeah, I mean, Johnson clearly copied the model that Holmes and Campbell used for their success. He built the lines up. You talked about Thuney, but I mean, man, they really reinforced that line, that offensive line, which was clearly their biggest problem. He's going to get Caleb Williams processing faster out there through the progressions. He added another target for Williams in the draft. Well, two, actually, because they added Burden and they added Loveland. I don't know about you guys. I want to know what you guys think. Are you surprised they didn't take, I know we're Michigan people, but are you surprised they didn't take Tyler Warren? I thought that guy was made in a lab to play for a Ben Johnson team. I know Loveland was coveted, but I'm surprised they went with Loveland over Warren.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I personally, I wasn't that surprised because I feel like, Loveland kind of fell a little bit down the board simply because of his production last season. Like, and I mean, can we really fault him? Look at who is his quarterback. You know what I mean? And I feel like Loveland, in my opinion, I always liked Loveland a little bit more. I do think he's more of, I guess it comes down to what do you want? You know, Tyler Warren to me is like the George Kittle type, and then Loveland is like the Travis Kelce type. Now, they're not necessarily as good, but those are the style of player. I feel Cole Kmet might already fill that role over there for Chicago. Now, they might move on from him, of course, after drafting a tight end in the top 10. But I always felt, you know, Loveland is the better receiver. You know, this pure receiver, he's better at it. And I think that Ben Johnson looks at it like just a weapon, you know, kind of like Sean Payton loves his joker. I think that's kind of what Colston Loveland is going to be for Chicago. James, what are your thoughts?
I think, excuse me, I think Loveland is a hell of a player. I mean, I know on a few of our podcasts, and I wasn't obviously pounding the table for him, but I'm like, if the board falls a certain way, I wouldn't be mad if the Lions took him. Now, obviously, he didn't fall to 28. He was taken at 10. And before anyone else freaks out, if the board fell a certain way, um, like I said, he was not one of those like top tier must have guys, but 10 was early, even in my opinion, and I really like the guy. Um, but I do see why Ben Johnson likes him. I feel like he's going to fit into that, dare I say, Sam Laporta role that we had here, and it was a good pick in my estimation. But I do think 10 is pretty rich for him. But at the same time, I mean, Lions fans cover your ears, but we took Ebron at 10, so it's not exactly the first time a tight end went in the top 10. Also, Hawkinson at 8, although that one at least worked out a little bit and more in our favor. Um, I won't mention Pettigrew. I think he was 22nd or 23rd overall. But yeah, so I like Loveland more than those guys for what that's worth. But 10 steep, man. 10 steep, and I like the kid, but he's as I mentioned in the last podcast, he's not that oh shit guy. Like he's not that damn Bears are coming to town. How are we going to stop Loveland? Like what are we going to do? How are we going to like? Yeah, you do have to factor him in just like any other player, but he's not striking fear of me, so I'm not really worried about that.
Yeah, I remember like when we did our live show, it was kind of funny. We all rejoiced. Like when it happened, we were like, "Oh fuck yeah, they didn't get Ashton Genty. They didn't get a stud defensive lineman. They picked a tight end. Like sweet. Well, I would much prefer that. Thank God they didn't get Ashton Genty because like that would we might be in for a hurting if that happened, especially with that new revamped O line. Now, my next question for you, Ryan, is the Lions schedule dropped pretty recently, and we see a gauntlet. Okay, this is gonna be a tough one, and that's kind of where my remarks come from with the division this year. Because look, man, do I think the Lions are gonna win the NFC North? Yes. However, would I bet my house on it? Probably not, simply because there is a real chance that we only win, let's say, 10 or 11 games this year. And I mean, we saw it last year. The Vikings, they won 14. It's possible that another team, Chicago, Green Bay, or Minnesota, jumps up ahead of us and takes the division. So, with that being said, like, we see, I think it was I want to say 5 through like 11. That was just rough. Like we have Kansas City in there, we have Philly in there, we have Cincinnati in there. I think I might be wrong about this, James. I'm sure you're looking it up right now as we speak.
Yep.
You got Washington and Minnesota in there too. I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it up here. Yeah.
That's rough. Washington and Minnesota on top of that is like, woo, thank God we got the bye week in between because we have our bye at around I think it's week 8. Week 8. So I just feel like, we got set up here a little bit by the NFL, and obviously we were the best team in the NFC, so that's how it's going to happen. But I just want to know your thoughts. Like, what were your initial thoughts when you looked at that schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think the division strength is clear. I mean, I do think they're stronger than last year because we talked about the Bears a little bit. I think I've got to go with the Lions. I think it's close, but I've got to go with the Lions overall. But I think the Bears might be the second best team in this division. You've got Minnesota. That's a lot of that's going to land on JJ McCarthy, but they improved the line there. They've got the skill position players, and he just basically has to be as good as Darnold was. And if I said that comment at the beginning of last year, people would go, "Oh yeah, that's pretty possible." Now we have a different view of him, but we'll have to see how that. I'm interested to see how that carousel goes because you move Darnold to Seattle, you move Geno Smith to Las Vegas, and Vegas might be better than people think, and Seattle might be worse than people think with Darnold. I'm interested to see how that drops off. Green Bay didn't add enough to their line play. I didn't think they added a bunch of receivers, but if they don't give Love enough time, I think that's going to be trouble. But yeah, as far as the schedule goes, I that is a tough stretch. I think one of the observations with the actual release is the fact that they have division games earlier this year. And so they're going to have to come out of the gate hot. They start with Green Bay, then Chicago. You mentioned that stretch midseason, but Green Bay, Chicago, Baltimore is a heck of a way to start a season. Cleveland after that, which is nice. But, you want to win 2 out of those first 3 games, hopefully. And the division games are more important. Baltimore historically has not gone well for the Lions. They've gotten a little bit better against the mobile QBs. But they're facing a heck of a running game there. So, yeah, it is formidable. They've got to have one of the toughest schedules. They do have one of the best. I think it's a historically good rest advantage. That's one of the things that helps this year. Those are little things that play into the season. But yeah, that being so front loaded without McNeil, without Rodriguez, with Hutchinson working his way back into playing form, that's going to be interesting to see because I think they could find themselves at the bye tracking a little behind some of those other teams, but that doesn't mean it's time to hit the panic button. Hopefully that means their health trends the other way, the opposite way that it did last year.
Yeah, and that's a great point. The first 3 games are definitely going to be tough as well. And when I first saw the schedule, the first game that I was like, shit, was Baltimore. Because, like you said, we have historically not played well against them and historically not played well against mobile quarterbacks. And, I mean, they got Derrick Henry. They just signed they signed DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason, which we all know he's not Houston DeAndre Hopkins anymore, but he adds something to their offense. And I feel like, they got a 2 tight end, kind of like what we got at running back in a way. Obviously, they're not quite as good as a Jahmyr Gibbs is at his position, but they do a great job of, I think, exploiting our weaknesses specifically. And like I think it was 2 seasons ago when we got just demolished in Baltimore, like 38-6 or something like that. Like, that was the worst game of that season by far, and I have a feeling it's going to be the same this year. And then, of course, we travel to Philadelphia, like you said. The one game that, that I am looking forward to a lot personally is Washington because that's, the revenge tour. It'd be great to go get a win against them, of course, to try to get back what we lost on the divisional. It was definitely nice to beat the Niners last regular season to kind of get back on that a little bit. But with that being said, James, do you have any questions for Ryan?
I was looking at the week 10 and 11 schedule. I know we touched on, some other portions, but specifically those 2 games stand out to me because week 10 is at Washington versus the Commanders. And then the very next week, we are at Philly. So back-to-back road games against 2, in my opinion, top 5 teams in the NFC in totality. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that potential gauntlet at this point in time.
Yeah, that's a tough stretch. Like we talked about, it at least comes after the bye. I like that part of it, but both teams, I mean, Washington, they're going for it. Like they see their window because I was very high on Jaden Daniels last year. That's easy to say now, but I did think he was the best quarterback in that draft before the draft happened. That was a little less popular opinion at that time. But I just thought he had I thought he had the processing ability that Caleb didn't have. I could see Caleb's improving now under Ben Johnson, so that'll be interesting. Pairing him with that offensive coach may make him take that next leap. But Daniels had the leadership and the processing, I thought, going through the progressions. But yeah, now they really didn't have a strong roster outside of Daniels. I mean, they had good coaching, they had good leadership. Now they've reinforced a lot of those positions that they were weak at. They added Lattimore, obviously, late in the season. Now they've added a lot of pieces in the offseason. I think they're going to be very tough. And those are two teams that, like, the Eagles are very strong now. They obviously won the Super Bowl last year, but they could be in a general downward trajectory. I'm not saying the bottom's going to fall out, but they didn't lose as many pieces as I thought they would in this offseason. They did a good job retaining with all those free agents, so they're still going to be very strong. They had less losses than I thought they would in the offseason, so they did a good job managing the money. I thought they had a good draft too, and picked up all those assets as you mentioned, Jace. But I think the Commanders are the team that the Lions are going to have to watch out for. But hopefully that revenge game thing does come into effect, because hopefully they can out-tough them and have the revenge aspect. Because historically, whether it's the Cowboys with that big-time loss last year where they beat them pretty bad, the 49ers, you mentioned that one, they do play better when they have bulletin board material. They're like Michael Jordan manifested into a team.
Yeah, for sure. And, the thing with Washington, great point there with how much they added, because I feel like a lot of people aren't really talking about that enough, at least. Like, they obviously had the best quarterback in the draft last year, but I would personally go as far to say as Jaden Daniels was top 10, if not top 5 last year as a quarterback, as a rookie. Now, like you said, they weren't as good on paper last year, but they had good leadership, the rookie quarterback thing. I feel like now, like you said, they added all these new pieces, but we've seen it before. We've seen teams that, like Washington, who look great, they add some stuff and then something falters. I don't personally think that's going to happen for them, but I wouldn't be that surprised. Now, the one thing I do want to say is I wouldn't be surprised if this Washington-Detroit thing turns into a real rivalry, because they're young, they're good, and so are we, and we both play in the NFC. Like, I could see us meeting each other for, either the divisional or the I don't know how the championship, the NFC championship, for the next 5 years. I could see us playing them in the playoffs every year. Obviously, there's going to be some other teams, to play against, but just something to keep in mind, because, we talk about the Packers, the Vikings, and the Bears. We might be talking about the Commanders in that same vein here soon. So with that being said, James, you got anything to add?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Like I said in one of the other pods, which obviously Ryan wasn't a part of, although he's more than welcome to be. But I did have the Commanders, and just overall as one of my top 5 teams. Like you said, they're young, they're talented. They added to their offensive line with Laramie Tunsil. They added Deebo Samuel for another weapon for them. Obviously, they still have Scary Terry there. Mike Sanistil, a Michigan guy, has been basically their version of Brian Branch over there. I know or I would say in general, the public doesn't talk much about him, because once he leaves Michigan, he's out of sight, out of mind. He's not like Hutch that's still playing with us. But he was killing over there. He was one of my all-time favorite Wolverines. So I kept an eye on him. And like you said, I can see this being a potential rivalry back and forth for a few years to come. And I welcome it. Unlike the division rivals with Vikings, Bears, and Packers, when we were playing Washington up until the playoffs, at least a lot of my interactions with Commanders fans on X and whatnot were way friendlier than any of the division rivals. So I would welcome that friendly competition any day.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. And then last thing we got for you, Ryan, before we let you go. my question for you is, if you could pick one player for the Lions on either side of the ball to be a breakout player, so, somebody who's not necessarily already a star, who would it be? Because I feel like it seems to me as if most of our players have already done that. Like there's only a couple that I could even think of. So like I know that might be putting you on the spot a little bit there, but what are your thoughts on who could be the next Lions breakout player?
Well, I might use this. You guys will have to tell me if this is allowed because he was on the team last year. He got hurt, but one of the first guys that comes to mind is Derek Barnes because he got hurt last year. I think he was on his way to a big season, and he fills a very specific role. I think this is part of the reason they didn't go edge in the draft, and that a lot of the fan and pundit opinion isn't really forging along with what Holmes and Campbell have in mind because of that heavy edge thing, and then Barnes being that edge rusher that can also drop back because he was showing some competence at being able to drop back into pass coverage. So I could see him putting out a type of statistical season that might be a little bit of a surprise, have more sacks because, I mean, think of that inside with Barnes on the other side because we were looking for an edge to equal Hutchinson, but what if that edge is Barnes? Because you got Hutchinson, you got Williams, you got Reeder, you got McNeil eventually, you've got Levi and some of the other guys that you're throwing all in the middle, Davenport, and then hopefully, and then, if not somebody like Pascal, and then you've got Barnes coming around the outside. So I feel like he's a candidate just because he showed some things last year and then got hurt. I also, it's interesting because I think they were very smart about what they did. I like the way Carlton Davis played last year. I think he was a good fit, a good improvement. I think they quietly improved that cornerback room. And so DJ Reed is at the top of that. I think he'll fit that well. He was in the shadows of Sauce Gardner there in New York. I think he'll be able to show out as the number one. And then they improved kind of that depth in the cornerback because I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of sick of hearing about Kindle Vildor. I feel bad for the guy. He keeps slotting in. Yeah, exactly. He keeps slotting in as like the sixth cornerback, and then he ends up as the number 2 by the end of the season. That's not going to happen this year. They have a little bit better depth, and I think Reed being at the top and being paired with really another candidate. I think Terrion Arnold could have a big year. Now, what that year looks like, if you're talking statistics, I don't necessarily see him picking off a ton of passes or anything because it's more built for the safeties to do that. But I do think that he's going to be very sticky in coverage. So those are the first few. But I'm interested in your guys' take on that too because, like you said, we've had a lot of breakout candidates. McNeil was one of the guys I liked a couple years ago, and he's broken out. Obviously, Hutch, a lot of the guys have broken out. So who do you guys see here?
Yeah, I personally love, the Derek Barnes because I feel like not a lot of people are talking about that. And I know we talked about this on your show already, but it just seems like nobody really thinks of Derek Barnes when they're thinking of who's going to be that guy across from Hutch. I didn't even think about it until honestly you mentioned it. And I was like, no, that actually makes so much sense that's why we signed him to that what most people would say was an overpay, but he's a Swiss Army knife, for this defense. So, and then of course, DJ Reed, he's going to be a stud. I think Brad Holmes absolutely killed it with our DB room coming into the season. But if I had to pick, honestly, I think Jack Campbell could be. Yeah, I think he could be the guy that like takes over that defense. Like he's going to be the guy with the mic in his helmet. He's going to be our true middle linebacker next year. We saw last year he played pretty well, but it also seemed like they were kind of rotating him in and out kind of situation. Like he started most games, but and then obviously when Anzalone went down, he played a lot more. But it just feels to me like he's going to take that next step because I think Brad Holmes knows this is probably Anzalone's last year in Detroit. Unfortunately, I love the guy, but for what he's probably going to ask for, we have, guys that can play that spot. So my pick would be Jack Campbell. James, how about you?
I'm actually a little surprised that neither of you said the guy that came to my mind. which is good content-wise at least, because hopefully all three break out, and then hey, look at that. But the guy that came to my mind as soon as you mentioned, um, like that guy that no one's really talking about is Enos Rakestraw. He got hurt last year, and he kind of did the JMO approach. He came back and had just uh, 10 snaps here or there and didn't really do too much. But and you can only take so much out of it, and they're rookies and blah 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 to try to end the rant. Um, I remember in training camp, both in the training camp that are open to the public that I went to, and just from the reports and whatnot, that in training camp leading into the preseason, and even somewhat in the preseason, I feel like Rachel was outplaying Terry and Arnold. And that was a story that quickly got swept under the rug when he got hurt, unfortunately. I mean, it was a small sample size. It was just training camp. It was just preseason. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, of course. But that's when he was healthy. So when he was healthy, he was looking good. He got hurt, like 90% of our defense. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with whatever role he has. I know he played outside at Missouri. I almost said Minnesota. That's not where he went. At Missouri, and but with Arnold and Reed, I don't think he's going to be thrown into the fire. He's not going to be expected to cover the Justin Jeffersons and stuff like that. So I feel like he can make a name for himself and carve out a really nice role, whether that be nickel or just whatever spot he does. I mean, hell, maybe they put him at safety, and we can always put Branch back at nickel, or you can fiddle around. We have multiple moving pieces, but that's the name that I think can break out and surprise some people.
Yeah, I really like that one too because, I like how you mentioned training camp because I was lucky enough to be able to go to one. And I would agree, it definitely seemed like Rakestraw was playing really well, at least in camp. So, it would make some sense. Now, the only problem is our cornerback room, like you mentioned, is so deep, man. Like, and
Oh
again, he could
no.
play right. Oh no, we have a lot of good players. um, but so like Rakestraw though, he can play kind of anywhere, and he gives us the ability to kind of rotate too. So like Terrion Arnold isn't going to be playing 98% of the snaps. You know what I mean? He's going to go down to like 85 because we have a guy like Rakestraw that we feel comfortable, putting out there. With that being said, I think that's all I got for you, Ryan. If you got anything else, any other questions you'd like to ask us before you go?
No, I like both of those picks. Yeah, I agree with you though, Jace. I think that's a great pick, James. But I'm curious to see what that defensive backfield does look like because you took out Glenn, which is going to be a loss. I think that's going to be a culture loss, and he was a great leader. But now they have even more defensive backs to work with, so that'll be interesting. I like the Campbell. I thought about that afterwards. I'm interested to see how much of the mantle he's going to take from Anzalone this year. I think that's the big question because Campbell's so close on a lot of things, and I do think he was underrated, and he has the ability to do more playmaking. It's like he gets close to a play and gets in the right spot and then doesn't quite make the spectacular play. He makes a lot of good plays, but it's like he's close to making kind of like Van Ginkel did last year with the Vikings, especially early on. Like he's capable of doing stuff like that. He's got the athletic profile. He's in the right spot. They play a slightly different position, but that's kind of what I could see with him producing there. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show here.
Of course, we appreciate you for coming, and you're always welcome to return if you ever feel like talking some ball. As always.
I'd be happy to, yeah, anytime, and we'll definitely have to have. I know I've had Jace on the show a couple times, but we'll have to have James on the radio show at some point too. Oh, he just made a face though.
I am more than happy to do that. I just don't know if you want that, but I would be more than happy to talk ball anytime.
Sounds good. Yeah, but yeah, look forward to it's fun to cover it in the off season because the NFL truly is a full year thing now. They do a very good job of spacing this out so that there's coverage basically all year. I thought this was going to be kind of the dearth of coverage here in my show. We're covering a lot of baseball, obviously, but basketball and hockey are dropping off. But yeah, there's still a lot of football to cover, so it's fun stuff.
Definitely, always. And that's the thing. Football is the best sport. So
Yes.
we are very lucky to be able to cover it year round. So again, Ryan, I appreciate you for joining us. As we said, you're always welcome to come back. Uh, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, we'll see you. Take care. So that was Ryan Walsh from Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh. Great conversation there. You guys can check him out. That's what I forgot to do. I forgot to tell him to plug himself. I'm an asshole. So there's that. So fuck me, I guess. But anyway, so anyway, always good conversations with him. He's a local radio in Southwest Michigan, like Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Plainwell, Allegan, all that stuff. You guys, since I didn't do it because I'm an asshole, I will go ahead and shout him out for him. You can find him at Sports Intel Ryan on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And then you can find his shows every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, on 94.9 FM in Grand Rapids, 98.9 FM in Plainwell, 99.9 FM in Lowell, 105.1 FM in Kalamazoo, and 980 AM in Otsego. You can also tune in wherever you're at on Jethro.fm. So go ahead and check his stuff out, do your thing. He always has some really cool guests on. He usually does, I think he does like 2 hours or so, and he has a half an hour guest the whole show. So it's a really cool thing. You get a lot of different perspectives and different sports talked about. It's not similar to this show, but it is in ways. So if you like us, go check him out. And we, of course, appreciate you guys for watching us as well. You can find us at MI Sports Media, misportsmedia.com. You can find James at Gullet_James on X. You can find me at Jace O Sweet. And we will see you guys on the next one. Peace. Yes, sir.